Thank you. My name is Erin Freeborn, as you heard, and I was asked to come and share what inspires me to do restorative justice, what challenges I face, and also how I try to overcome those obstacles. So first, you have to know what sort of project I work with. As we've heard today, everybody comes from, everyone is shaped by many events through their lives. They're shaped by many people, many places, that they encounter many different individuals who shape them. And so with that being said, I have to tell you, I'm a person who actually studied religion. I'm trained in theology as well as law. I went to BU School of Theology and got my Master's of Divinity, and that's where I first encountered Tom Porter, who is here, and who I attribute a lot of my dedication to restorative justice. I also completed the Religion and Conflict Transformation program at BU, which is a wonderful program, and it inspired me to go to law school. And while at law school at Northeastern, I knew that I wanted to use restorative justice in the legal context. I wanted to use restorative justice in response to crimes, and I wasn't sure how that would work because it didn't exist yet in Massachusetts, but I was sure that we were going to make it happen. And so that's some of what led to what is now the Juvenile Court Restorative Justice Diversion. And this is a diversion program that works with the Juvenile Court in Lowell specifically. And it is a program that for a period of years was under a lot of thought and revision by students and professors at the Northeastern School of Law, as well as members of the community. And so that means we had to engage all of the stakeholders. We had to engage the judges. We had to engage the district attorney's office. We had to engage the public defenders. We had to engage everyone if we were going to figure out how to make something that was not only true to restorative justice, but also true to the legal system and protected the rights of the individuals who would go through that program. And so what inspires me to do this? It's just simply the fact that I really see myself as a bridge-making person. I want to bridge the communities of restorative justice as well as law. I want to bridge the aisles, seems to be a common phrase these days, right? I want to bridge the aisle between the offender and the victim. We don't use that terminology in our program, but I can explain to you in the workshop what terminology we do use. And the reason that I do this is because I really truly believe there's goodness in everyone. The sheet that was passed out a little earlier about what we believe to be true, the very first one says, the true self in everyone is good, wise, and powerful. And I personally agree with that. And I think that if we work really hard, we can find that goodness in people despite what they may have done, and figure out how to, as Janet said, restore the balance, because that's what you have to do after a crime. You can't fix things back to the way they were. You have to find the best way to restore the balance for public safety, the balance for personal harm, and the balance for the person who did the harm, their future. So the challenges that I face, you can only imagine. I'm involved in work that is shifting paradigms. We live in Massachusetts, which is on some hands a very advanced state, and on other topics not so advanced, a little bit more parochial, a little bit more entrenched in traditional punishment, crime and punishment ideas, even though I don't like to say that they're the traditional ones. But so this is a paradigm shift. It's a shift in the concept of crime and punishment and how we are supposed to react after there is an offense. So that can be very challenging. And you have to also temper that with the challenges from the other side, the restorative justice community. There are some people who do not believe that restorative justice should be used in institutions. And it's important to listen to those people and hear their concerns, try and understand where they're coming from, and then it's up to me to try and figure out the best way that I can do this project and stay true to the principles and practices of restorative justice and protect the participants that are involved. And so that's a tension that I really live with every day. And I do think it's very important to remember people's personal backgrounds and the cultures that they come from, and because that sometimes can lead to the cause of a conflict, and also it can lead to a good resolution.
Thank you. So our next panelist, I'm happy to introduce to you Karen Lijinsky. She is a sociologist at Curry College and also teaches through the BU prison program at Norfolk and Framingham prisons. So she's here to talk about her use of restorative justice in the context of correctional facilities.
Thank you for having me. Let me just say I'm a little uncomfortable because this is a little too distancing for me. I'm much more comfortable in a classroom, but when Janet calls, I listen, and she asked me, so here I am. But let me just say, as a teacher who really believes in a liberal arts education and believes that education is truly transformational, that reading a book, the first book I ever really read was Pedagogy of the Oppressed, that just completely changed my entire life, that had me thinking about maybe education is for me, to going and getting my PhD as a working class student and thinking about, wow, education is truly transformative, that can, you can really think about what is affecting your life chances. And so I brought that mentality to the Boston University prison program. And the challenge was, how do we walk into that classroom and have, at least at Norfolk Prison, which is a medium security prison for men, who could bring a mentality that they had a right to this education. As I began teaching at BU in the prison, it became very clear to me that the men in that room wanted to make meaning out of their lives. And when they could make meaning through conversation and dialogue and through reading, they wanted to think about how do you take responsibility for your crime, and also think about the larger structural forces that have impinged upon their life chances. And so when I started to talk to the men about restorative justice, just on the side, because I knew that I was not going to be allowed to teach a restorative justice class. Now I think that is changing, and I think that eventually we'll have a restorative justice class be taught in the BU program. But I would just say, hey, you might want to read this, and they would come back and say, can we have some more? And so forth. And then we began a dialogue just in classroom, in the hallway, talking. And then some of the men started to talk about, well, maybe we should talk to the other guys about this idea of restorative justice. And then you saw an energy, right? And then it started to really push through. And then some of the men started to talk about, well, maybe we should have a conference. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how are we going to do that when I can't even get a class? But again, men continued to meet on their own. It was not me, it was them getting together and talking about restorative justice practices, passing along an article. And then we started to gather at different moments in the prison, not in the classroom, not in any organized way, about how do we have this conference. And it took a very, very, very long time, because I think that although the men were being transformed by the readings, they are operating in an institution that is the exact opposite. It is about dehumanization, it is about destruction, it is about shutting down that flow of energy. So how do you get an institution to go along with a conference? But I do think that when there's a momentum and an energy, it becomes unstoppable. And so what ended up happening in May of last year, we had a 2-day conference in which Janet came. I'll be forever grateful for Janet for coming, because just by having Janet's voice be heard throughout the prison, because over 200 men came to that gymnasium in which Janet spoke about her story, where men spoke about their stories. And I truly believe when people witness each other, in that exchange of witnessing, it is inescapable. A humanization process is going to take place. Whether you want it to or not, it's going to take place. And I will never forget that one of the men at the conference, when we broke into small groups, he said, I don't know what's happening to me, Karen, but something's changing. And I said, what do you think is changing for you? And he said, for the first time in my life, and he's a lifer, for the first time, I actually thought about the victim and their pain. We all asked him to just sit with that and so forth. And I see him in the hallways, and he says, I'm going to come back again when you have your next conference. And that's, what we're trying to do, work on another conference and so forth. Because the institution at this point, I don't think can turn away that momentum or that energy. It's there to stay. The question is the strategy. How do we have another conference? How do we begin to have a class that teaches the entire prison, if guys who want to sign up to learn about restorative justice practices. But I also will say there's also a potential. The good news is that it's here that it's in the prison at Norfolk Prison, and soon hopefully to be at Framingham. But I think one of the pitfalls is the programmatization of programmatizing restorative justice practices. I think we have to be really, really careful because it's not me, it's the men and those that they've affected that really should run the show. Tell us what you want, and we will follow. But I think it can become so institutionalized that the success, you look at the success, and it's not actually what you wanted when you first began. And I think that's really a problem that we have to think about.
So this time you're going to go back into your circle with the folks at your table. Do people feel like they need to get up and jump around for a minute before that, or can we go right into circle? Does someone say yes? Okay. I had a really cool idea about how we would do that. Ha ha. So let's all stand up. Okay, so you know that song, Head and Shoulders, Knees and Toes? So I have a different one. So it goes like this. You can just repeat after me. It goes head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Can you do that? Head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Knees and toes, baby. 1, 2, 3. Knees and toes, baby. 1, 2, 3. Knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes, baby. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. So have a seat. So in your circle, I have 2 potential questions that you could respond to. The first one is, what does justice mean to you? And then the second one is, how is restorative justice different or the same from that context of what you know about or what you believe about justice? So we have about 10 minutes for us to share in the circles around that. So can the panelists from the first panel come up to join us in the front? So as folks are coming up, we're going to have a time for folks to ask questions of folks on the panel. And just a reminder that we do have workshops this afternoon after lunch where you'd get more time to interact with folks that were on the panel, and even more individuals that weren't on the panel, to continue engaging in how the work of practice within restorative justice. And I had 2 thoughts after, or a few different thoughts, after this last panel. I really liked that Aaron brought in the connection of theology and restorative justice. And for me, I'm an ordained American Baptist minister, and I definitely feel like theology has been a really key component to understanding and integrating this work into my life personally, as well as into my professional life. So I appreciate Aaron bringing that up. And also, we don't have a particular focus on people of faith in restorative justice today, but definitely know that many people of faith are really committed to this work and to finding ways of integrating it into their ministry in the world. And then a few other things that just wanted to acknowledge that I think that especially within I think just within the criminal justice system in general, but I was thinking in the context of domestic violence and sexual assault, that restorative justice is often looked to, or sort of at least a creative approach to how we address harm or crime, specifically for folks who are immigrants, folks from the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender or queer communities, and then also people of color or people of the global majority. So I feel as though those communities definitely have been sort of on the forefront of talking about restorative and transformative justice and finding alternative ways to addressing harm within and without their community, and oftentimes have been leading the way and definitely have led the way in my experience through Renewal House and the UU Urban Ministry. So I wanted to just start off by asking the panelists if they would talk not briefly, but if they could talk or answer sort of what has been one of the, I know a couple of you mentioned this, but I'm just interested in knowing what's the biggest challenge, do you believe, to implementing restorative justice principles in your context? And Janet, do you mind starting?
I think I do restorative work in a lot of contexts, but I think that in community it is actually one of the easiest because you can bring people together. We are beginning a monthly circle in the Bowden Street area of Dorchester starting December 11th, and that will happen. Is that the second or third Tuesday of every month? It's whatever that December 11th is. So I think that one of the easiest things is about bringing people together. I think that one of the problems that the challenges is people get all concerned about time. People have a thing about this is a problem, we need to fix it, and if you look on the medicine wheel that Strong Oak has made reference to, if you look at it in terms of a methodology, then the first quadrant of a medicine wheel is about introductions and getting to know you. The second quadrant is about deepening relationships. The third quadrant is about identifying concerns, and the fourth quadrant is about seeking solutions. And so often in this society, we want to skip those first two quadrants, and that is how come our solutions do not take hold, because building those relationships is what is truly important and is what is really important. I would like, if I can, to read something here. It's pretty short. I wanted to read it before,
Now that you brought up that we're all committed to time, I'm supposed to tell you that you can't read something.
Okay. But this is from a woman named Gwen Chandler Rivers, who is an African-American woman who lives in northern Minneapolis. It was one of my restorative justice teachers. And this is a quote in this book about using circles as democracy. So Gwen says, whenever I hear a white person use the words democracy, it scares the hell out of me. Every time we talk about a democratic process, we are talking about hurt, excluding, separatism, and creating a class of victims. To me, it says nothing about being fair or treating people equally. With what I have experienced in my life, I want nothing to do with democracy. So if we're going to use the word, we need to spell out what it means. I believe that we can practice being better human beings and that we can create spaces where we can do that. Circles being that kind of space. But for me, democracy is about boundaries, limitations, always someone who is hurt, always someone whose voice is not being heard. It's about issues of power over, control, and hierarchy. It's about the majority costing the minority, hurting people and getting away with it. Again, from what I've experienced, democracy is where people who speak the loudest win, where people who have the most power, money, or privilege win. It is a feel-good word that doesn't actually mean what people say it means. It just creates more harm. I would guess that the way I feel about the word democracy might be true for many people of color. For many of us, it does not feel good at all. And then she challenges us, how can we create a world where people are heard? How can we create a society that is more equal, fair, just, and compassionate and loving? The circle just might be a model for us to get there.
Thank you. So we only have a couple more minutes. It's called Doing Democracy with Circles. So we only have a couple more minutes and just wanted to open it up to questions from the group for any one of our panelists. If anybody has something that they're wanting to ask at this point. Again, just a reminder, you'll get more time to interact with folks, but definitely want to open it up for questions. So if you want to raise your hand, maybe I can run the microphone to you.
My name is Jay Blitzman. I'm the judge from Lowell, so I'll work with Aaron in our collaboration. I just wanted to stress that the restorative justice collaboration is just that. It took years to get to where we are. So, Aaron didn't have an opportunity to address that, but we work. It's a partnership with the school department, the Middlesex DAs, the bar advocates, public defenders, but most of all the kids. And we're partnering with UTEC, United Teen Equality Center. That's the venue in Lowell where the circle trainings is being done. Aaron recently became the director of the project, and also Northeastern School of Law. Northeastern School of Law approached me a few years ago, asking me if I'd be a client in trying to create a restorative justice program, giving work that we were already engaged in Lowell. So I want everybody to appreciate that it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of community, it takes a lot of collaboration. We began these discussions over 3 years ago, and now finally working with the Middlesex DAs, the defenders, we have, I think, 3 pilot cases or 4 pilot cases. And we've expanded diversion dramatically. And the reason why I want to emphasize this, and I apologize, this is not a question, it's a statement, is that one thing that everybody here should know about juvenile justice in Massachusetts is we do not have the ability to expunge a record for a juvenile. Once he or she has been arraigned, they're in the record forever in our carry system, which then is disseminated through our Corey system. So even if a person is factually innocent or the case is dismissed, once they're arraigned, they're in the system forever. So I think we've been able to expand through discussions more intelligent use of diversion and expand diversion to include school-based conduct, which is something that most DAs formerly would not even consider, because if something happened in school, it was kind of root canal.
Okay, so we wanted to open, I'm sorry, thank you so much. But we were really interested in folks that wanted to ask questions of people on the panel. So if somebody has a question, it would be great. Yep.
My name is Heather, and first of all, I would like to thank these 2 young gentlemen up here. I am so thankful that you're here today, and I really admire you for what you're doing. It's amazing. But I guess I'm in education, and I feel completely empowered by what you guys had to say today. But I'm wondering, when I hear people who are so skeptical about using restorative justice or critical thinking methods with students in classes, or I hear students who are really skeptical about it, I'm wondering, what would you guys tell a classmate who is really skeptical about using restorative justice in schools? How would you convince them that this is an amazing thing to do?
Thanks, Alex.
A lot of times when we get people to come in, it really starts off like that, but the way the structure is like a lot of people think that we're gonna just come off on you, but we always do things to like actually show you that we're not just trying to get you in trouble and we're just trying to help you out. So we'll start with things like, oh, people's like strong like attributes, like, oh, this person's very smart, this person's very like joyful, and then we like talk like say positive things about them, and then show them that we're not just trying to gang up on them. So then after, I feel like once you get that first person in there, and then people see, okay, it didn't go bad, then people start to like be a little bit more open-minded about it. So yeah, just having one person come in and then seeing how it is, or having a circle about it and telling, like, showing the structure of how it is, would definitely kind of like open people's mind and just show them that it's not as bad as it sounds.
Paul, did you want to add to that?
No, I'm good.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Sure.
Hi, so resources, are you working with Codman Academy? Are you working with Codman Academy on the restorative justice piece?
No.
So they have a computer version that tracks behaviors for students, teachers, administrators. They hold each other accountable, and it was developed by someone who was big time at Harvard Graduate School of Education. And so maybe if you get together with George and with the Academy, you'll have another school, and you'll also have a dashboard that they're already using. They've been using it for years, and maybe people just need to see the three of you working together.
Did you have a question?
Are you interested? Are you interested in that? No money, no contracts. All right, you think about it and let me know, okay? I think they'd be interested in that. They need
Great.
people like you, all right?
Great, thanks so much. I'm sorry, we need to wrap up, I think. Yes?
You can take one more question.
Okay, she had a question. I think she has a question, yes, a question. It would be a question.
This is actually a question, and it's pretty deep. I hope you can answer it. I work in a school with kids that get suspended pretty frequently, and they go into our behavior intervention program. And so I'm just wondering, like, on a psychological level, can you describe or can you remember the moment where, like, something changes and you realize that you want to change your trajectory? Something that happened in the restorative justice process where you sort of had some kind of realization. And I want to know this because I want to think of some tangible things to say to my kids when they feel like the process is extremely challenging.
For me, when I realized like that I needed to make a change, it was just like it was last year I went to Puerto Rico. It was like almost all paid. Like I just had to pay like $200 or something like that, and the guy paid all the rest of it. I stayed there for a week. I came back all extra dark. But I came back, and like for some reason it's just all the things that he was saying. Like he had all these positive things, and I was like when I came back, I kind of was like, hey, what he's saying is like true. I need to, if you're doing bad, it's never too late to change yourself. I mean, there's a certain part where it's too late, but it's never really too late to change yourself. So I got, like, when I got back to school, I was like, this stuff is easy, and I started doing it, and I was like, wow, why didn't I just do this before? And I started, and then I got that, and then that's, after a while, I got, they like realized, DP, they kind of realized that, I can do it, so why not help other people do it, So that was what I did.
I feel like having peers helping you out, really like keeping you motivated, is a big part about it. Like with the restorative justice, how we do it is like we do like a few adults there, and then we do a lot of like students or like friends or someone there to support. So it's not seeming like it's all like adults sitting there like, and they'll say, they don't know how I feel about it. But if you have like peers, like students, like helping you, telling you, okay, they'll know how to explain it in a way that it doesn't seem like they're just trying to come at you. So I feel like having younger people that's around close to them, like friends, would be a good way to keep them like calm and like let them know that they're doing something wrong or something, and they just need to change it without giving them too much.